Okay, Carol, I think we can get started.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm proud to be the moderator today for the PAC Global webinar entitled Navigating US and European Food Contact Material Regulations. As I mentioned, I am the moderator. My name is Carol Zwieb. I'm the manager at NSF in consulting and technical services. I'm also a central council member with PAC Global. So who is PAC Global? It is a trusted advisor for packaging leaders to connect, collaborate, innovate, educate, and celebrate. They're a not-for-profit corporation offering members unparalleled value through a broad range of industry initiative, educational opportunities, packaging award and competitions, webinars, seminars, and events. Join over 2,500 worldwide members and tap into these resources. So here is a slide with upcoming events on October 5th. There's Golden Design Rules Essentials course, October 18th to the 20th, Sustainable Packages course, November 2nd, a tour of the Regional Peel Material Recovery Facility, November 4th, a tour of GFL Richmond, and in November 15th to 16th, there's a course on packaging circularity. So you can go onto the PAC.global website to get more information about this. There will be an opportunity at the end of the presentations for questions and answers. And if you can, at the end of the presentation, submit them in the box, and I will be reading out the questions and they'll be answered by the panelists. And if you want to direct certain questions at certain panelists, please indicate that as well. Also at the very end, there'll be a little questionnaire or survey that pops up for your feedback on this session. And with that, I'm going to introduce the presenters. Delfina Buning is the Technical Scheme Lead of Product Certification at NSF. And we have P.S. Gasser, who's the IFS Technical Project Manager and IFS representative in North America. So with that, we're going to start with Delfina's presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I start with our topic for today, I would just like to give a brief introduction of what NSF is and what NSF does. NSF is an independent, not-for-profit, non-governmental public health and safety organization. Its main focus and mission is to protect and improve human health. This slide gives an overview of the services that NSF offers. NSF has developed standards through a public process that ensures balanced input from industry, representatives, academia, public health, regulatory officials, and consumer representatives. NSF also provides testing, certification, and auditing to public health standards in all key industries. The testing, auditing, and certification services assure suppliers, retailers, regulators, and consumers that an independent organization has reviewed the product or system to comply with the specific standards for safety, quality, sustainability, or performance. Separate from certification, NSF also provides technical consulting services tailored to the client's needs. NSF also offers online or on-site training that help keep companies abreast of the latest regulatory requirements and industry best practices. So now let's dive into our topic for today, which is food contact material regulations in the United States and in the European Union. First, let us define what a food contact material is. A food contact material is a material or article intended to come into contact with food and water intended for human consumption. The material that is in contact with food could be plastic, metals, ceramic, cardboard, glass, paperboard, or silicone. The article could be a packaging material, cutlery and dishes, processing machines, containers, kitchen equipment, or containers used to transport food. There are a lot of food contact regulations in different countries in the world, but there's a common thread or commonality with regards to these food contact regulations from different countries. The food contact regulations exist to keep humans safe by prohibiting the transfer of chemicals to foods in hazardous concentrations. The regulations also exist to make sure that the food contact materials do not adversely affect the sensory properties of the food. The regulations exist in order to make sure that the production of the food contact materials are performed or done under good manufacturing practices or GMPs. There are two fundamental systems or food contact regulations that are in the United States and the ones also from the European Union. Other countries will have their food contact regulations, but these are the main ones. So for today, we will give an overview on how we could comply to the United States Food and Drug Administration food contact regulations. And then we will go on to give an overview of how to comply with the European Union food contact regulations. And at the end of the webinar, we will try to give a comparison between the two food contact regulations. There are four main routes or avenues, major avenues, to show compliance of a substance or ingredient to the FDA food contact regulations. One of the avenues is through the 21 CFR or Code of Federal Regulation Title 21. To show compliance of a particular substance, that substance can be shown to comply to 21 CFR if it is listed in the particular 21 CFR section. Another avenue is to show that a substance is generally recognized as safe. Another avenue to show compliance of a substance to the US food contact regulations is if that substance is under a threshold of regulation exemption, or if that substance is a subject of a food contact notification or FCN. So let's take and look how to comply to the US food contact regulations through the 21 CFR parts 170 to 199. The Code of Federal Regulations, Title 21, cover almost all classes of food packaging. For example, the plastics are covered under Part 177, and under each section of Part 177, the polyphenes, like the polyethylene and the polypropylene, are covered under 21 CFR Part 177.1520. Paper and cardboard are covered under 21 CFR Part 176.170. Polymeric coatings are covered under 21 CFR Part 175.300. One has to make sure that the end use restrictions are met because not all materials are suitable for use with all types of food under all types of temperatures. "21 CFR are accessible in the internet. One has just to make sure that the section is current, and the most current version of the 21 CFR Title 21 will be in the Electronic Code of Federal Regulations, or ECFR. Here's an example of a 21 CFR section, 21 CFR 177.2600, which deals with rubber articles that are intended for food contact use. So how do we show that the substance is compliant to 21 CFR? 21 CFR compliance is two-pronged. The ingredients of the material should be identified or listed in 21 CFR, and the end products testing should be met, and that is also required under that specific section in 21 CFR. The test conditions are dependent on the end use conditions and the food types that will be in contact with the material. Not all sections of the 21 CFR will require the end product testing. So let's take, for example, 21 CFR 177.2600. The first part of this section deals with all the ingredients that are acceptable for use in the manufacture of rubber articles intended for food contact use. It will give or list the substances that are okay to use in the preparation of rubber. It will also give the elastomers that can be used, the vulcanizing agents, the accelerators, which are acceptable at a total not to exceed 1.5% by weight of the rubber product. And then it will also list the plasticizers that are acceptable for use in the manufacture of rubber. The plasticizers should not the total of the plasticizers should not exceed 30% by weight of the rubber product. At the end of this 177.2600 is a section on the extraction testing requirements of the rubber article. If the rubber is intended for use in aqueous foods, then the finished article or the finished rubber will be tested in distilled water at reflux temperature, and the total extractives should not exceed 20 milligrams per square inch during the first 7 hours of extraction, and then it should not exceed 1 milligram per square inch during the succeeding 2 hours of extraction. If the rubber article is intended to be used for fatty foods, then it has to be tested under reflux conditions and hexane, and the total extractives should not exceed 175 milligrams per square inch during the first 7 hours of extraction, and not to exceed 4 milligrams per square inch during the succeeding 2 hours of extraction. So basically, each section of the 21 CFR that is corresponding to a specific material, in this case rubber, the section will list all the acceptable ingredients that can be used in the manufacture of the rubber. And at the end of that section, the extraction testing requirements will also be specified. Another avenue to show that a material or substance is compliant to the United States food contact regulations is to show that that substance is generally recognized as safe or GRAS. GRAS substances are listed in 21 CFR titles 182, 184, and 186. Part 182 of 21 CFR is the general provisions for the GRAS, and it lists a mix of direct and indirect ingredients that are considered GRAS. Part 184 lists the food additives that are GRAS that can be directly added to food. And Part 186 are the GRAS substances that are indirectly added to foods. For example of direct food additives are salt, cayenne pepper, or your spices and flavorings. Those are considered GRAS under Part 184. An example of indirect food additives under Part 186 is zinc sulfate, wherein zinc sulfate is used in the manufacture or processing of paper and paperboard, and it is the paper and paperboard that is in actual contact with the food. Another example of an indirect additive from 21 CFR Part 186 is Japan wax, and it is used in the processing of cotton and cotton fibers. And these cotton fabrics are the ones that is in contact with dry foods. Another route or avenue to show that a substance is compliant with the US food contact regulations is to show that that substance is under a threshold of regulation exemption or TOR. A substance that is a subject of a TOR exemption means that use of that substance does not result in a dietary exposure that is above 0.5 parts per billion in food. The threshold of regulation exemption database is also available on the FDA website. And in this particular case, for example, TOR number 2016-004 is for this food contact substance that has a CAS number 51-51-3. And it has its own limitation. And when you use it in the formulation, it has also to comply to these use limitations that are indicated for that particular substance under the TOR exemption. Another avenue to show that a substance is in compliance with the US food contact regulations is to show that that substance is under a food contact notification. The food contact notification inventory or database is also available in the FDA website. One thing to remember is that if you are using a substance that is a subject of a food contact notification, is to make sure that you are obtaining that particular substance from the manufacturer that submitted the FCN to the FDA. So FCNs are proprietary to the company that submitted the FCN. And then also you use that particular substance intended to the end-use conditions and food contact types that are specified in that particular FCN. So for example, if we click FCN number 1605, it deals with the substance octadecyl 3,5-diethybutyl 4-hydroxyhydrocinamate, which has the CAS number 2082-79-3. And this particular substance has its own specific limitation and also intended use under FCN 1605. And you have to use this particular substance according to the limitations and specifications that are indicated in FCN 1605. As an example, this particular FCN 1605, this substance is an antioxidant for polyurethane resins, complying with 21 CFR 177.1680. The limitations and specifications is that this substance can be used at a maximum level not to exceed 667 parts per million by weight. The FCS, or this particular food contact substance, under FCN 16605, cannot be used in contact with infant formula or human milk. And again, it is proprietary to the company that submitted the FCN. So you could only buy this particular substance from the manufacturer that submitted the FCN. The next avenue to show compliance to the US food contact regulations is to show that that substance is a subject of a food contact notification, or FCN. What happens if a substance is not covered under any of these possible avenues is to show that particular substance can be cleared through FCN or a TOR submission. Usually an FCN or a TOR submission will require migration testing in food simulants and also an estimation of the EDI, or estimated dietary intake. There is a guidance for industry that is provided by the FDA, which is called the Preparation of Pre-Market Submissions for Food Contact Substances Chemistry Recommendations. So if a particular substance hasn't been cleared to the US food contact regulations, one can submit an FCN or a TOR submission to the FDA. So in summary, these are the 4 major avenues to show that a substance is compliant to the US food contact regulations. To show that that particular substance is compliant through 21 CFR, that is, it is listed in 21 CFR, or that substance is considered GRAS or generally recognized as safe, or if that substance is a subject of a TOR exemption, or it is a subject of the food contact notification. All of these are available on the internet. The websites of the FDA will have the inventory or database for the FCN, and a database for the TOR, and then the GRAS substances and the 21 CFR that are listed in 21 CFR. Now let's go to the European Union food contact regulations. These are the member states of the European Union. The one that is not included here is the United Kingdom. It has withdrew its membership to the European Union in 2020 through Brexit. So how do we show that a substance is compliant to the European Union food contact regulations? First, the substance has to comply with the framework regulation EU 1935-2004. And under this framework regulation, there will be the harmonized legislations or directives for certain types of materials. But then there are also the non-harmonized directives or the national legislations for certain types of materials like paper, cardboard, and printing inks, to name a few. The symbol that a particular substance or material is compliant to the EU food contact regulations is this cup and fork symbol. The framework regulation, or EC 1935-2004, is the overall arching regulation that a food contact substance should comply with if it has to comply with the European Union regulations. Article 3 of EC 1935-2004 requires that the food contact material is manufactured under good manufacturing practices, that the material must not transfer its constituents to food in quantities which would endanger human health, bring about unacceptable changes in composition of the food, bring about deterioration in the organoleptic characteristics of the food. And then the labeling should not mislead the consumers. The framework regulation, or EC 1935-2004, lists the general requirements for all food contact materials. Under the framework regulation, there are specific materials that are covered under specific legislations. For example, ceramics materials are covered under EU 84/500/EC. Plastics material are covered under EU Directive 10/2011. Recycled plastic and the regenerated cellulose are covered under EU Directive 2007/42/EC. And the active and intelligent materials and articles are covered under the EU Directive 450/2009. There are material types that are not covered under specific EU legislations. An example of these are metals, rubber, adhesive, paper, and others. So how do we show if a particular plastic is compliant to the specific directive EU 10/2011? First and foremost is that all the ingredients in that particular plastic are reviewed to make sure that they are in the positive list under EU 10/2011. The positive list is a list of monomers and additives that are allowed to be used in plastic material. Each additive or monomer will have its own migration limits or residual content limits, and that should be shown that that particular substance comply with those limits, either through migration modeling or through testing. The migration modeling is like a software that can be used to show that a particular substance does not leach into the food at a certain concentration, and that modeling can show if that particular concentration is above the limits that are indicated in EU 10/2011. If the migration modeling shows that it is above the limit that are required under EU 10/2011, then that particular ingredient and that particular material can be subjected to testing. The testing requirements under EU 10/2011 is that the material must meet the overall migration limit, specific migration limits, And also that plastic material should be tested for metals and primary aromatic amines. And there are limits that need to be complied for the metals and the primary aromatic amines. If the plastic material is colored, it should also be tested for color fastness to show that the color is not bleeding into the food. And then sensory testing is also performed to make sure that the plastic material does not alter the taste and odor or appearance of food. The testing is done using food simulants that mimic the actual types of food that will be used for the plastic material. For example, 3% acetic acid is used to mimic acidic foods. 10% ethanol is used as a food simulant to mimic aqueous foods, and vegetable oil is used to mimic fatty foods. The overall migration of a plastic material shows the inertness of that plastic material, and the pass-fail limit is 10 milligram per square decimeter or 60 milligram per kilogram of food. The specific migration limits will be listed under EU 10/2011, and so are the limits for the metals and the PAAs. If all these limits are met, and if the plastic material is color fast and the sensory, and it does not alter the sensory, that is the taste and odor of the food, then we could issue a declaration of compliance for that particular plastic material. The declaration of compliance, or DOC, will show that that particular plastic material is compliant to EU 10/2011, and it is substantiated by the passing test reports that were conducted during the testing. Now let's take an example of material that is not covered under a specific legislation. An example is paper and paperboard, wherein there is no specific EU directive that covers paper and paperboard. So we go into the national legislation to show compliance of paper and paperboard in the European Union. The Netherlands have its own set of regulations. So does Germany, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Italy. So these countries will have their own specific national legislations to show compliance of paper and paperboard that are used in food contact. So if one is exporting a plastic material, is exporting paper and paperboard to the European Union, one can show compliance to the German national legislation. And because of the principle of mutual recognition, that compliance will be accepted by the other member states of the European Union. So we can see that the set of requirements under the FDA, or United States Food Contact Regulations, are very different from the requirements under the EU or European Union Food Contact Regulations. Compliance to one set of regulations does not imply compliance with the other set of regulations. A comparison of the FDA and EU food contact regulations. Both food contact regulations from the United States and the European Union are self-declaration. We often hear people asking for, I would like my material to be FDA approved or EU approved. Actually, there's nothing of that sort. What you want is to show compliance of your particular substance or material to the United States FDA food contact regulations. So you basically self-declare, same way with the European Union regulations. But the declaration should be supported or substantiated with actual reviews of your formulation and also testing if it is needed. If, for example, a particular substance hasn't been cleared by the FDA, the most common way of having that substance cleared is through a submission of a food contact notification. Same way with the European Union, if it hasn't been cleared, if a substance hasn't been cleared through the European Union food contact regulations, a petition to the European Food Safety Authority can be submitted in order to have that particular substance cleared under the EU food contact regulations. So I would like to thank you for your attention this afternoon. And at the end of this webinar, we will be opening for questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Delfina. Excellent presentation. I'd like to give you a brief introduction about IFS on how IFS is addressing this very important topic in packaging. IFS is a global standard of European-based certification standard, which offices around the world. We have 8 offices around the world, and we have 30,000 assessments worldwide in food on the different topics, which I'm going to it. So in North America, our head office is in our office is in Canada, in Toronto, because we also working very, very closely with PAC, with the Packaging Association, for the standard. Next, please. When you look at who is recognizing IFS around the world, you just have a little map here for all the different retailers, food service companies around the world, which are actually not only supporting IFS, they very often also are in the working group and working with committees and IFS on the different standards. Next. IFS certification. IFS provides standard to assess product, specification, process, and compliance in relation to food safety and quality. Certified companies ensure the services, materials, and product meet legal and custom requirements. That is the main focus when it comes to IFS certification. Here is the family of our standards. We have 6 standards and 4 programs. So the main standards are food, broker, logistics, and of course packaging, which we're talking about today. We also have some called global market programs, which are also recognized by GFSI, which is global market logistics, global market food, global market packaging. This global market program are important for entry-level companies who are just going into the certification, and they have step-by-step guidance to get into certification. Product and product shall meet the destination regulatory compliance. We just talked about that. Delfina made it very clear. We have two things we look at IFS in the expectations. You have to have product made to the country you make the product according to the law, and also destination on the regulatory compliance for this destination. How does it go about it? There has to be a system. We're going to talk about a little bit just now, type of regulation, updates, responsibility, destinations, the assessment part, and also the risk assessment part, which is a key factor when it comes to an IFS certification, because our certification is based on the risk. Next, please. In IFS, we renew its codes 1.2.5. It is as senior management shall have a system in place to ensure that the companies is kept informed for all relevant legal and regulatory requirements, scientific and technical development, industrial code practices, product safety and quality issues, that they are aware of factors that can influence product defense and product fraud risk. So this is basically when you look at the system, and it's up to senior management to have that system in place, method, responsibility within the company, product and services, and also the list of destination countries. Next, please. Then we have the assessment part. Identify regulation where it's relevant, and Delfina made that very clearly. For example, for special in Europe, where there is not only European Union, there is also regulation sometimes from different country outside the European Union thing. But as we looked at very clearly, a very important IFS is also the raw material part, because raw material has to be legal, also according to the legislations. Products, that's including purchase product. If you buy in a product and sell a product, that follows under the same regulations. If you have services, and of course, this destination has to be addressed accordingly. Next. Risk assessment. Risk assessment is a very important part when it comes to IFS. In 2.2.1.2, the basis of companies' product safety and quality management system shall be fully implemented, systematic, comprehensive, documented risk assessment based on either hazard or independent risk assessment based on the product. That goes to product allocations, destination of product, raw material, and in IFS, there is two very important parts when it comes to that, and we call them a knockout requirement. We talk a knockout requirement if the raw material is not up to legal, and the finished product is not up to legal, will also be a knockout requirement. Knockout means we will not pass the audit if you not have that clearly identified. Verify system effectiveness. Everything is about verification. Implement the mechanism to identify activities that may impact compliance, customer product locations, destination location, raw materials, product and services. In there is a very interesting word when we talk about compliance to customers. One of the things we also call a legal requirement is that you produce the product according to customer specification. That could be specific raw material coming as per customer specification. It also has to be about finished product customer specification. Very important. Confirm implementation regulations. Okay, we just heard how we can confirm implementation regulation. It's not a certificate from the government. It's a self-declaration, but we have to have the backup with risk assessment, and also the backup with verification on tests to make sure it's verified. And of course, this has to be an annual, a minimum annual review. That's still the case. And if there anything happens during the year, there has to be a review schedule to make sure we are still in compliance. Next, please. That's a very short time how IFS is looking at that in the standard. The auditor is very due diligent to make sure we have this component in place, and therefore the auditor is going to spend a lot of time, not of time, but quite a amount of time looking at the legal requirement of raw materials, and also legal requirement of finished product as per law and as per customer specification and as per designated country. So, having said that, to learn more and download the standard, we have visit our website, packaging@ifscertification.com is a specific website, is ifspackaging.com. There is a lot of information, a lot of guidance, a lot of booklets you can work on to get into the IFS standard. Okay, thank you. Stay in touch. The more of IFS Pack Secure, stay in touch. Please follow the LinkedIn. We have a lot of information LinkedIn on the YouTube channel, or contact me direct. We are here to help in the implementation part. We're working together with PAC and also with the certification companies to make sure you have a successful system in place, which is via the verification that your system is in place and therefore in compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Piers and Delphina. So there are a few questions, so I'm just going to read them out. If the panelists could put their camera on. Lindsay, there's been lots of questions about having the presentation available. I know you said that the recording of it will be available on the PAC Global website, but can people get the slides with all the links? Can you answer that, Lindsay?
Yes, we can send it out to the registrants.
Okay. There is a question about what is required for paper and cardboard box. I think that was answered, Lorena, and if it's not, can you let me know, or you can ask another question. I have a question here. If we have a packaging material that has passed the relevant 21 CFR testing, are we good to use the materials for food contact, or the manufacturer, or does the manufacturer need to get FCN as well? Delphina?
If a particular substance has been cleared under 21 CFR, again, the 21 CFR is two-pronged. The ingredients that are in that material should be listed in 21 CFR, and also the end product testing should be complied with. So if the substance that we are talking is already compliant with 21 CFR, there is no need to do, there's no need for it to be also under the food contact notification database. So one should only be able to show that it is compliant to 21 CFR as long as all the ingredients in that material are listed in 21 CFR, and the end testing requirements, if there are, have been met for that particular section.
Okay, I hope that answers the question, Yu Cheng. So another question for you, Delphina, is the migration modeling a software? How can we get it? If a formula is approved on the migration modeling, then the product doesn't need to be tested?
Correct, yes. It's a software, and we could give the like the link on how to get that particular software. It is not free. You have to buy the software, and you could use it to do migration modeling for the substance in question.
And I think maybe the easiest way for some of these, I mean, you're answering it, is to reach out directly to Delphina, if that's okay. So it's Buening, BUENING @nsf.org. So if you'd like to do that. Few more questions. Can you clarify what supplier push means?
Usually the suppliers, due to marketing, so that then they could market their products well, they would want to show that the particular material is compliant to the food contact regulations. It's like, it's an edge if you could show that your material is already compliant to these food contact regulations. So that means that it's a good way to market it, and the suppliers usually try to push to make the manufacturers to make sure that their product or their material is compliant to these food contact regulations.
Okay. There's a question, so the follow-up to the paper board. Is there US regulations? And I know you said out there's specific countries in Europe that has that, but is there any US regulations with regards to paper and paperboard?
Yeah, the paper and paper board is under 21 CFR 176.170. And that particular section of 21 CFR would list all the ingredients that can be used in the manufacture of paper. And then at the end of that section, it will also list the test requirements to show that that particular paper or paperboard is compliant to the US food contact regulations.
Yeah. Okay, and the question is, can you please elaborate a little more on the testing for migration studies part? And I believe that's offered at NSF, and I mean, that might be a very long answer. So maybe it's better to contact, unless you can give a short answer, Delfina, that might be something very specific to elaborate more on the testing part. So is that correct? It's a lot of detail, right?
Right, but maybe just to give an overview, the migration testing is required if that particular substance hasn't been cleared by the FDA before. So for example, you want to have that substance approved or cleared by the FDA. What you will submit are this migration testing, wherein that material is subjected to testing using different food simulants, depending on what types of food you will be using that material. And then it will also be tested under conditions simulating the actual condition of use. So for example, the material may be tested in 3% acetic acid, and then the analyte of interest will be tested to make sure that to get the concentration of that substance in the exposure solution. And then the estimated dietary intake will also be calculated based on that concentration. So yeah, if you would like to know more about it, please give me an email, send me an email, and we could direct you on how this migration testing are done. But again, if your material is already cleared under 21 CFR or is already cleared under the TOR regulation exemption, or it's already cleared under an FCN, then the migration testing is not needed.
There's a question. Thank you, Delfina. Where can you buy the modeling software? I think you don't offhand know the website. Do you happen to know the name of the modeling software so they could look it up, or?
It's called the AXE modeling software.
Okay, thank you. A few more questions, and we don't want to go past past the hour too much. How do companies stay current with the changing regulations?
For us, we usually have a subscription to regulatory database, and also we try to look at all the different. We have like regulations alerts that we subscribe to. And also, I usually check the FDA website and the European or the EFSA website to make sure that we stay current with the changing regulations.
Great, thank you. One last one. This is for PS. An auditor must provide evidence. I'm sorry, I can't read some of this stuff because maybe the spelling. Regulations apply if it is a site. Provide evidence. the results of analysis when they fail means a KO. An auditor must to evidence loss. Sorry, did you want to, Lorena, actually ask that question? I guess I'm not able to read it right. Or do you want to just reach out to PS directly? If the results of the analysis, when they fail, or the results of out of limits, does this mean it's a KO? Can you answer that, PS?
Yes, so the auditor's looking for objective evidence that you're within compliance. That's all the audit is going to do. If the evidence said you are not in compliance, that would be a failure. So
Okay,
it has to be within the legal requirement. So the auditor will look at your documentation, but the auditor has to be clearly see objective evidence that you are not complying with the law or with the customer.
I hope that answers your question, Lorena. If not, you can reach out to PS directly.
Yeah, she's welcome to send me an email. We can have a team meeting and we can talk about it.
Okay. There's a few more. I'm going to go through this fast. For packaging users in Canada, in general, in compliance to FDA regulations, means we're also compliant in Canada. Is that correct?
Usually, Canada will accept the FDA compliance, but there's also what they call the letter of no objection that can be obtained through Health Canada to make sure that that particular substance is cleared in Canada. But yes, compliance with FDA regulations is acceptable under Health Canada.
And
Okay.
let me add on, you can also go into the CFIA website, which is the same as FDA, which has got pretty much comparable situation. The FDA and CFIA work very close together.
Thank you,
Okay.
PS.
Does the testing consider the time the package will be in use for shelf life estimates?
Yes, like for example, if the material or the packaging will be used for long-term storage, then the testing condition will be like 10 days at 40 degrees centigrade to cover that shelf life or that long-term storage.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. I hope that was very informative. And you can reach out to each of the panelists if you have further questions about the regulations or the testing, and then same with the IFS standards. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending today. Hope you found that of interest, and join us again for the next PAC Global event.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.